Hello, I am Eric.
And I am Brandon.
And welcome to episode 4 of ProgPod, and the second episode of our top 50 favorite songs of all time. And in this episode, we're going to talk about songs 40 through 31. All right, so in addition to our normal music listening stuff that we do, we've been to a few progressive rock concerts in the past few weeks. I went to 2 actually. One with Brandon, and that was to see Between the Buried and Me and Tesseract and Astronoid. And I actually went a few weeks ago to see Aether Realm and Wilderun. So we're going to talk a little bit about our experience. I guess we should start and talk about the Aether Realm one.
You should go first.
Okay, dope. So Aether Realm is a band I talked about a little bit in, I think, like the first episode of this, or maybe the second episode. And I talked about how I thought that their album was like good, but like a little bit cheesy for me. And I saw them, but I wanted to see them live just because, like, why not? And I wanted to go to Asheville and everything. But I ended up, I saw them, and I was actually blown away. They gave an amazing live performance that was really good. They were all like really, really good at their instruments. Played it live like very well. Lots of shreddy guitar solos that were pulled off perfectly. Lots of fantastic drumming. And the vocals were also just great. And the mixing was surprisingly good for such a small little venue. And that was it was really cool. And I ended up buying like a ton of merch. Like I hauled home, I got like a shirt and a poster from Aether Realm, and I got a shirt from Wilderun. Wilderun was also really good. But I was less familiar with their discography when I saw them, so I was not really sure where they were. And they had some sound issues. But anyways, they were really good. Aether Realm was awesome, and the lead vocalist / frontman, like that, he was probably the highlight. He was just a really nice guy. An opportunity to talk to him for a bit afterwards. That was a really great show, and it was such a great surprise that I liked it so much. So it was fun.
Yeah, and both of us this past Sunday went up to the Triangle area and stayed at your parents' old house or whatever. But the show we went to was in Winston-Salem, Sunday night, actually, another Sunday night show.
Yeah.
We saw Astronoid, Tesseract, and BT Band was the headliner. And Astronoid came on, and me and Eric actually, we had never listened to the music before, but we like knew of them.
Yeah.
And we both thought they were an instrumental band.
Yeah, it was really confusing.
There was like a 2-minute, the first song they played opened with like 2 minutes of instruments. We're like, this is what we expected somewhat.
Yeah.
And then the guy just starts singing.
Yeah, and we're like glanced at each other.
Yeah, we're like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I guess they're not an instrumental band. But yeah, I thought they were pretty good. I never listened to them before. They had a pretty good mix overall, although I thought the vocal mix was like my one complaint about the show was that it was too buried in the mix.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's intentional or not, but for my taste, it was too buried in the mix. But all the instruments sounded great. They were super energetic. They played a pretty short set. The drummer seemed to be having a really good time, jolly time. He was like singing along the whole time. I really like, my favorite dude was definitely like the guitarist on the opposite side of this side from us.
Mm-hmm.
He had some really tasty guitar solos, really cool riffs as well. The lead singer was also a guitarist. He had some really like interesting riffs he was doing. But yeah, they were a cool band, I thought. Any thoughts on them?
Yeah, I thought they were cool. I think like progressive rock and or metal is kind of a genre where it's like if you're seeing a band live, it's like the more you know about their discography and like the more familiar you are with it, the better. So sometimes like I'll see a band and like be like, oh, that was cool. But then I'll get into their stuff later and be like really blown away.
Yeah.
But it was good for like just like a live show of a band I've never heard of, So I like that. Mm-hmm. And then next up was Tesseract, which is a band we both like a lot. But we were a little disappointed with their most recent album. Mm-hmm. So we were a little bit curious about what kind of songs that they would play for this most recent show. And they actually they played some stuff pretty much spanning their discography. They played stuff from Altered State. They played parts of one of their really long songs.
From one. They played parts 2 and 3, I think, from Concealing Fate.
Concealing Fate, yeah. And it was funny because like after they finished that song, like someone behind me was like, "That song's really long." It was like, they only played like a couple parts of it. It was like, wait till PT Band comes on. But yeah, anyways, so it was really cool, and they played stuff from Polaris, which is my favorite album of that from them, and also Brandon's favorite album.
Yes.
Yeah, and they and that was really good, so I enjoyed that a lot. And it was kind of surprising because like Polaris is our favorite album, but it's like not the favorite album of like the majority of the fans, I feel like. So I almost felt like they'll probably skip over their like second most recent album that like a lot of people weren't in love with, whatever. But anyways, so I ended up liking that a lot, and the songs from Sonder, even though I still think the album was a little disappointing, they came across a little better live. A lot of the gent stuff generally does.
Yeah.
Gent related stuff.
I think gent related stuff is always like
Yeah.
better live for some
Yeah.
reason. But yeah, like I have
The tangentially related gent stuff.
I have similar thoughts as well. Tesseract's mix like across the board was like phenomenal. It was so good. The bass, what's his name? Amos, I think is his name.
Yeah,
the
it was
bass
really
sounded
cool.
so good. He was directly in front of us.
Yeah.
And the guitar sounded amazing. The grooves like. They're really good on the album, but live they were just like so good. Just the guitar grooves and the bass grooves. The drumming was amazing. The drums sounded awesome, and Daniel's vocal mix was also incredible. And like you said, they played a really cool set that like was pretty surprising, I would say.
Yeah.
I didn't think they delve as deep into like the older songs.
Yeah.
I thought they definitely play more Sonder stuff, but I think they did a really good job of the length of their set and balancing like their entire discography.
Yeah.
And like you said, the Sonder stuff like came across better live. And the song Juno is a song I've actually like taken a liking to outside of the live context more so recently. And I thought that song was really well done live. But like again, my favorite part of the show was definitely like the part where they played the two players track, Survival and Dystopia especially. Dystopia was definitely
Really
a surprise,
good. Yeah, I
and it
really
was
love
so good
Dystopia.
live. Yeah, but the whole show was just like really, really good, and they were definitely like a really good opener for Between the Buried and Me to get me like
The main
ready
event.
for the main event.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was gonna let you start off with them.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so they're my favorite band, and this is my third time seeing them live now. This is my favorite time, I think. They played a really interesting set with a lot of surprises, I would say. They played. They played some stuff. They played like the Automata 2 songs that I thought they would, which is Voice of Trespass and the Proverbial Bellow. I was hoping they would play that because they played it in Europe, and they did. They brought it out as the opener, which is really cool. And then they played Fossil Genera, which is a song I didn't think they'd play. And they played the two closing tracks, Option Oblivion and Life in Velvet from Coma, which was my favorite part of the show. It was just so emotional. It was my favorite album of all time.
Really didn't expect them to play Life in Velvet.
Just because it's so like mellow to start.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite part of the show. They brought out House Organ from Automata 1, which is an interesting choice. Like a good choice, but an interesting one, I thought. They also played parts of Specular Reflection, which I just talked about. I think one of my favorite songs of all time, so that was cool.
You saw two of the songs that you were just talking about tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And, they played the Black Box and Telos from Parallax 2. So it was just a really good show, like, overall. The mix was, like, outstanding. I know every time I've seen them, the mix has been so good, but I think it just, like, keeps getting better somehow. I feel like it was, like, really, 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 really good. Everyone sounded, like, perfect. Everyone's performances were, like, flawless. Like, I thought just, like, vocally, instrumentally, it was just, like, so good. And it was just such a fun show, too. Like, the crowd was, like, pretty energetic, I would say. For the most part, and it was just like fun, like just like freaking out the whole time and like bouncing around and stuff. And actually, like the next day, my like chest and lung region hurt a lot from like screaming a lot because I tried to do like those vocals too. So that was cool, just having that hurt or whatever just from a show. But it was like an excellent show. It's like one of my favorite shows I've ever been to. It's not like my absolute favorite show. It's probably my third favorite show I've ever been to. But it was amazing. And like anytime they're near me, I'm just gonna go see them. They're just like become that band. It's like I need to see wherever they're at. It's nice that they're from North Carolina. That means I get to see them a little more.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very good. Yeah. I pretty much don't have that much more to add. I just loved it. Really was happy that they played Option Oblivion and also Life in Velvet, and just like that transition was really good. I I'm not as familiar with their earlier discography as Brandon is. I've listened to all this stuff, but Specular Reflection, I've only heard that one like a couple of times. But it was really great hearing parts of it live, and I thought it came across really, really well live. And they're just all obviously like really, really talented with their instruments. I was fortunate enough during that show to be like exactly like at the very front row, like touching the metal bar, and I feel like I had like eye contact with him a bunch of times, which is really pretty funny. And it was great. Really enjoyed it overall. We brought two of our really close friends who aren't like prog fans to the show, and one of them really loved it.
Yeah, my friend Dana. I should mention she's a girl.
Yeah,
because I feel like that's important. So but she I've forced her to listen to B2 Bam sometimes or whatever. And she like is okay with it or whatever. But she actually had like a really, really, really good time at the show. And she actually at one point sang some lyrics to me, which was pretty great during Condemned to the Gallows. But yeah, she enjoyed it a lot, and then our other friend Miranda,
who's also a girl. You're mentioning that. She wasn't a fan. She just kind of wandered back and forth. She would come up to the front for a couple minutes, then like leave, basically, and get.
Yeah, but it was cool that one person enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, so
it was a really fun experience overall.
Yeah, really fun, and I got some cool. We all got some. Yeah. Well, me, you, and Denim got some cool merch. And I actually got Tesseract's drummer gave me his drumstick.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Jay, I think is his name.
That's awesome.
He's handed me his drumstick, so that was really cool. I've never gotten like a thing at a concert from one of the band members before.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So if you're listening, Jay, thanks, man.
Yeah. All right, so now we're gonna get back into our top 50 favorite songs. All right, so my number 40 is a song that just came out last year, but since then it's steadily risen the ranks of my favorite songs, and it still has room to grow actually a little bit. And the song is called Miracle Car Wash, 1978, by the band Jack of the Clock. So Jack of the Clock, I talked a little bit about them last time. They're a band that we kind of discovered in a weird way, and I went back to them last year after hearing their most recent album, Repetitions of the Old City 2. And since then, I've just been on a non-stop binge listening to them. Brandon will attest that every time he goes onto Spotify and looks at the friends, that's what I'm listening to. And that's like one of my favorite songs by them. It's just really, really good. It's very complex of a composition. It starts off with like some cool like atmospheric stuff, and it ends with that too. But it starts off with some really cool atmospheric stuff and goes into like a vocal section with some really catchy vocals. And then it has like a really long extended instrumental section, which is what I think they do best. They do really, really cool stuff when they have these long jamming instrumentals with more acoustic instruments. Although in this song, they actually have an electric guitar that comes on in a couple parts, which is really interesting and kind of different for them. And then at the end, it goes back into the sort of like dream-like ambient section. That really captures my attention, really like makes me like reminisce about things, because apparently the song is about it's like a picture that Damon Waitkis, the main songwriter for the band, saw of like, I think it was one of his friends, or maybe it was of him even, when he was a kid in like a snowstorm in the 1970s, 1978, and so like near a car wash called Miracle Car Wash. So it really like does a good job of conveying that sort of like sense of reminiscing back to your childhood and everything. And just the instrumentals are great, the vocals are great. It's just a great song all around, and definitely has some room to grow too. And my song number 39 on this one is one that's a little bit surprising maybe for you, and that is Death Room, which is a song by Gazpacho on their album Demon. And that was an album of the week that Brandon gave me, and actually album of the week year 2 that we did, that was the second place one, and still is, I think. I really love that album a whole lot. It's an album, so Gazpacho, they're a band named after a bowl of cold tomato soup, which is a funny way to name a band. But they're just like absolute masters of atmosphere. They just really build like these incredible soundscapes that evolve in really cool ways. And they just know exactly the right notes to play all the time. And they really know how to build up these like long, slow like atmospheres and stuff. And this song, Death Room, it's in 3 parts on the album. I think the whole song is like 18 minutes long. And it's just a really cool song that concludes the story of that album, which is about a guy who like has like hunted like a demon or whatever for like his whole life, and he's been alive for like centuries or whatever. But it's a really interesting story. I don't know all the details, but I know like a good bit of it. Anyways, so it's a really cool song. Like has in 3 like pretty distinct parts, but it is all like definitely one song. Like the first part is sort of slower and just like more like vocally driven and stuff. And it's all pretty vocally driven. They have a really good vocalist, but the first part is more so. And the second part's really weird with a lot of like kind of circusy parts and like sound effects. And the part 3 also has like lots of sound effects and becomes more like ambient. It has like a long piano like thing, which they do that a lot too. They have lots of long like instrumental things that again I think really like contribute to the atmosphere, which is great. And so that's my favorite song on that album as well.
All right, my number 40 is by an artist that's already been featured on my list once, but this is going to be the highest this artist gets, which is like kind of a shame because this is one of my like top 5 like favorite artists ever. But like again, this is kind of an artist that I think suffered a little bit from like album stuff just being like, I don't know, the whole being greater than like
some of the parts.
Yeah, some of the parts, yeah. And the song is Raider 2 by Steven Wilson, which is still my favorite song by Steven Wilson, albeit it's off my 3rd favorite album from him. And Raider 2 is this like really long 24-minute song near the end. It's the second to last song on this double album. And it's a really hard song to get into.
Yeah,
and
the first half is so like...
it opens with this like really quiet like 3-minute intro with just like some bass before exploding into this like full band effort with this really cool guitar riff and then like this really cool like flute solo that like comes in and it's like horns and everything that's going on. There's just so much going on and it's really creepy. It's really like an unsettling song and like knowing the context of the lyrics will like tell you that it's about a specific serial killer. It was a real serial killer.
Yeah, apparently. Isn't it like BTK or whatever?
Yeah, the BTK killer.
Yeah.
It's about him and it's about like killing people or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really creepy, but there's a lot of stuff going on. There's like some really like heavy sections, some like borderline like metal sections going on in the middle. And the whole song is really jazzy as well, and it like really incorporates that like heaviness with like the jazziness, and it makes like the jazz like heavy as well, which is really interesting. And there's a lot of like ambient sections, especially the beginning, and then the end also ends on a really like ambient note as well. But overall, the whole song is just like beautifully composed, like really complex, and like really like does its job well of like taking you through like the mind of a serial killer. It almost feels like Steven makes you think like he is the killer. Like, that's how like good. That's how well done it is.
Yeah.
So that's my number 40 on the list. Coming in at 39 is another song by Beardfish off of their album A Sane Day, or The Sane Day. I think it's A Sane Day. And it's the song A Love Story, which is the opening track on that album. And it's one of the first Beardfish songs I like really fell in love with. It opens up with this like really beautiful like piano line. It's really like almost like loungy like jazzy like line or whatever. Before like coming into this, like it's almost like it's weird. It's this very like personal and intimate, like almost like singer-songwriter type thing that Ricard comes at you with the lyrics. And the song is about a relationship falling apart essentially, and I still think it's like one of the best songs that I've ever heard about a relationship falling apart. It's just so like genuine and like so like, I don't know, it's very personal, and it seems like you can just like relate to a lot of things in the song. The song is really interesting instrumentally as well. There's a lot of cool guitar stuff going on and keyboard stuff going on. And it builds like really well. Ricard, there's a lot of like really like funny lyrics as well, even though it's like a sad song overall. It's a lot of like quirky stuff going on. Like he plays like both parts, the female and the male in the relationship, and he sings them differently. And like I don't know, he kind of like shouts sometimes with the male, like as if they're like having like an argument. Yeah. And there's like this cool like back and forth between the two or whatever. So it seems like very real. And the song like goes into this like really cool keyboard section in the middle, and then the final part of the song is just like really emotional. It's basically just like the guy like pleading after his girlfriend has already left, saying how he'll like change himself completely if she'll just come back, and he just like is screaming that into the abyss essentially. So it's a really emotional song for me, and it's like a really good Beardfish song. So that's my 39.
All right. So my number 38 is a song from an album that we literally just talked about. And the song is A Sick Boy from Jack of the Clock's album, Repetitions of the Old City 2. I think that in time, I probably will like Miracle Car Wash a little more than this song. But for some reason, like when I first started listening to this album, this song really jumped out at me a lot. And it's really dynamic. And I love the way it like changes. So it basically starts off with this story about like, I guess a group of kids who live in a house or whatever with his kid who's sick, but they like hate him because like he's sick, and they feel like he always gets special treatment because he's sick, but they've never actually seen him. They just know he lives in this one room. So one day they like break into his room and they just see like a squirrel in there. He like runs around and like escapes and stuff. So that part's like really interesting and cool musically. But then after that, and it's more calm too. And the second half of the song is basically they're like running around town, like going nuts and like doing stuff. And I don't know exactly why that or how that relates to the first part of the song, but it's really cool how it changes. And the second part is a lot more energetic, and it also closes off the album really, really good, which is an album I like absolutely love. So that's my number 38. And my number 37 is a song that we've already talked about. It's been on Brandon's list already. And that song is Ancestral by Steven Wilson from the album Hand Cannot Erase. It's my favorite song on that album. Like Brandon said, I think Steven Wilson is a guy whose discography somewhat suffers on this list just because the context matters a lot, especially on this album, more than all the other ones, just because Hand Cannot Erase, all the songs bolster each other a lot, and it's hard to even listen to just like one song on its own from this album. But if I had to listen to one song on its own, I'd probably pick Ancestral. Brandon talked about it a lot, so I won't go into too much detail. But my favorite parts are just the really, really great guitar solo by Guthrie Govan. One of my favorite guitar solos ever. And like really put him in a position as like one of my favorite guitarists ever, because he did a really great thing on some of his on Drive Home and some of the other songs, but just like the fact that he can keep coming up with these like crazy amazing solos. And I really love the last part where they're just like repeating that similar riff for a lot of it, that like with like minor variations. A lot of people, that part is actually kind of divisive, and I've heard a lot of people talk about how like, oh, that song would be a lot better if they shaved off like 5 minutes. But I actually disagree, like obviously because it's on the list. But I think it's really cool how that riff keeps repeating and really like burrowing into your head, you know. And it's a really cool part in the story too for that to happen, like this sinister riff kind of like repeating over and over again. So that is my number 37.
All right, my number 38 is yet again by a band I've mentioned once on this list so far. And it is the song is called "The Bittersweet 4 and 5: The Congregation and the Sermon in the Silt" by the Deer Hunter. Nice. That's a mouthful of a song title.
Yeah,
a great song title. And this takes place on the album Act 4, Rebirth and Reprise. And it's a really, really good song. You know, it's really good. It's a really good story song, and musically, it's one of their best in my opinion. It opens with this like really like baroque-ish sounding orchestration with these really with like this congregation, I guess, and it's like from the point of view from the Pimp and the Priest, which is the main antagonist in this story. And they're kind of like talking about this congregation or whatever, and how he's brainwashing all these people going to the church before like bursting into this like really, really like fun and jazzy like section with these horns or whatever, and they're like reprising lots of stuff that have happened in the story already, like the Pimp and the Priest theme or whatever. And it's just a really, really awesome song. Like the orchestrations are amazing, the guitar work is incredible, and the chorus is just like one of the most like catchy things ever. I feel like. And the bridge as well is just like also super, super catchy. And besides all that, it's just like a super emotional song for me. I think lyrically it's like phenomenal, and musically it's also phenomenal. So that's my 38. And my 37 is actually a song from the same album.
Nice.
And the
song, first time we've had like...
Yeah, and the song I just talked about used to be my favorite song on the album, but I think this song is now my favorite song on the album. And I think it like gets a boost because of its length sometimes. It is the longest song on the album. And it's one of the first Deer Hunter songs I fell in love with too. And it's a song I've never fallen out of love with, really. It's always been like near the top. And that song is Night in the Town. And it's one of the more popular songs from the Deer Hunter, even though it is like a lengthier song of theirs. But I think it's just like a perfect song. It again opens with this like really in your face orchestration. There's a lot of trumpets coming at you. There's a lot of horns coming at you. And like the first part of the song is this really, really catchy like sing along type thing. The chorus is like infectious. It's impossible not to just like belt that at the top of your lungs, I feel like. And it does that for 2 verses and 2 choruses. And this really cool guitar part where it's like dun, 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 dun,
oh, yeah.
I like that. I love that part so much. And then it comes into this like these really intimate lyrics with this like full orchestration coming in. There's like a harp and strings like coming in. This really like quieter section, more ambient, before like eventually building back up to this really what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't know. It's like empowering almost, or uplifting. Uplifting is a better word. It's a super uplifting section with the orchestration and this really cool drum work going on with that as well. And these really good harmonized like ahs going on in the background as well. But it lasts like a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and it's just really powerful. And then like, again, the song shifts tone and mood completely again, and just goes straight down to this like really bare bones piano line that is also a reprise from a song I've talked about the first time, Bittersweet 1 and 2. It comes in that and reprises some lyrics, and then again goes into some really weird like Baroque orchestrations before like really ending abruptly. If you listen to the song on its own, you would think the song ended abruptly, but within the album it transitions perfectly into the next song. But overall, it's just like a journey of a song, and it's just like, it's my favorite song in Act 4, and it's just like an incredible song overall, and it's a song I listen to like a lot, so that's why I made the list at 37.
All right, my 36 is one that may surprise Brennan a little bit. I don't think it will that much, though. And the song is Dogs by Pink Floyd from the album Animals. And for those of you who don't know, Animals is, a Pink Floyd album with a concept, as some of their albums do. But the concept in this album is about, like, comparing, like, classes, classes and like social classes to, or like maybe like economic classes to like animals, and there's 3 different animals on the album. There are like pigs, who are people who are like really like the absolute most wealthy people, who are very like, they're just really the ones in control. And there's like the sheep, which is like kind of a common thing now. It's like, oh, the sheep over there, but that's just like the really common people running around just doing whatever they're told, basically. And there's like the dogs, which I think is the most interesting addition, like the most interesting thing they like talk about. And the dogs are sort of people who are like kind of high up, and they think that they're like really on top of it all and like really the ones in control, when really like they're being controlled by the pigs, and what they're doing is basically just kind of hurting the sheep pretty much, and just competing with each other in an absolutely vicious kind of way. And the song really conveys that like concept like perfectly. So the song starts off with like some cool acoustic strumming and some like kind of like serene kind of vocals that's just talking about like things you might have to be like a successful businessman, but also kind of getting a little bit more sinister as it goes on. But as it goes on, David Gilmour comes in with like really cool some really cool solos, really cool riffs. Has one of my favorite, solos that he does, which is like the part where it goes like, yeah, that part, which is amazing. And then after that, there's like a really long like ambient section, kind of in the middle of the song, before it finally comes back to that that like solo thing, and does that again. And it's like really cool. And I love that so much when it comes back to it. It's very emotional. And then the song like ends with like basically going out like I think it's Roger Waters now, who is like basically yelling in like some really powerful vocals about like how the dog, like basically saying like summarizing like the life of the dog, but like using language that would also apply to like a businessman. Mm-hmm. And it's really powerful and great. And I love that song. I think Pink Floyd is one of the most popular bands of all time, and I think of all the bands that are considered the most popular bands of all time, they're like the most deserving to be there for absolutely sure. And I love them a lot. All right, and my next one, number 35, is one that has been featured on this list before by Brennan, and it is the song Forced Entry by Leprous. Brennan talked at length about that song, so I won't go into too much detail here, but it's definitely my favorite Leprous song. It's very epic, very maximalist almost, like as compared to their later style, which is more minimalist, which I really like their later style. I agree with Brandon about that, but I kind of wish they would make another album like Bilateral, which is the album this song is on. It's just like an epic, like 10-minute song with just like crazy instrumentals, crazy guitar solos, amazing vocals, and just like all that. It's just like it's honestly like the pinnacle, not the pinnacle, but it's like such a great example of like prog metal and like everything it has to offer with the weirdness and the all that. It's such a great like I guess like epitome of the genre almost. So I love that song a lot.
All right, my 36 is by a band you would say I like a lot.
Nice.
And the band is Between the Buried and Me.
Would you say that though?
I would say I like them a lot.
Yeah.
This is, their first entry on this list. Maybe their last, who knows?
Yeah.
But the song is Specular Reflection.
Nice.
Off of their EP, the Parallax Hypersleep Dialogues. It's the first song on this EP. And it's an 11-minute song, super long song, as is common with Between the Buried and Me songs. But it's just really good. It opens with this like cool, this really sinister piano like sound and these really sinister like trumpets going off in the background before just like bursting into this like really heavy like riff and just like basically just chaos unfolds, and everyone's just like going freaking nuts for like 2 minutes or so. There's some really cool riffs, some really cool like newly like riffs like they do very often before coming to this like clean vocal section and this really 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 catchy clean vocal sung chorus that is just like in my opinion, one of the best choruses the band has ever written. There's a bunch of other stuff in the middle as well. It switches between just like balls to the wall heaviness with harsh vocals and like more like quieter ambient sections with vocals. And there's a lot of like cool lyrical setups that reprised in the Parallax 2 album on this song. Before the end, it comes back to this like really, really infectious chorus. So just like overall, it's just like this 11-minute journey. It's definitely not the song I'd recommend first to get into Between the Buried and Me. I think maybe do some other stuff that's a little more accessible. But like once you're really into the band, this song is like really, really magical. And it's my 36. And my 35 is a song that's really difficult to pronounce.
Nice.
The hardest song to
pronounce.
I
think I know what it is. Album.
Yeah. It's a band. The band is called Closure in Moscow, who is an Australian progressive rock band now. Maybe not on their first album, but definitely their last album, Pink Lemonade, which is where the song comes off of. And the song is called Mauerbauer Traurig Kite. It's a German word of some sort.
Yeah. I used to know what it means, but I forgot.
I did
now.
too.
Yeah.
I know how to spell it though by heart.
Yeah.
Cool.
Really?
Yeah, I learned it. But anyways, this song is in a lot of ways very different from the rest of the album. Yeah. It's more of like a slow build, but it's like really, really. It's a really important song to me personally. The album is a concept album, but the song is like the one song on the album I feel like that like you can listen to outside of the concept and like take like a lot of meaning from lyrically, but it also works well conceptually as well. It's like in a lot of ways it's like a love song, I feel like, or like a love song that isn't like working out or whatever in that kind of way. And it's got really, really good lyrics. It's got this like cool like guitar line, this really like mellow guitar line that is played throughout it. It's got some really cool verses and like some more like the chorus is not like as like mellow, I guess, but the song's really mellow for a while and before it builds like around the 5-minute mark to this really, 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 really emotional section that like is really this song is like really difficult for me to listen to with around other people, I think, because like it's one of those songs where I think, is it gonna make me cry right now? It just always makes me really sad for whatever reason, because it is sad. But this part in the middle I'm talking about is really, really emotional. And the lead singer, I forget his name right now. I think his first name is Christopher.
Yeah, Christopher De Cinque.
Yeah, he's a really, really good vocalist, and the way he like sings these lyrics, he's basically just like he's pouring out his entire heart to you almost. The lyrics are really well done there, and he keeps building and building and building. It's almost like he's screaming at the end, even though he's singing in a clean voice, and then like comes back down and ends with this really like weird like drum, this long like drum like outro type thing. But it's a really, really good song. It's my favorite song on the album, and yeah, it's just amazing.
All right. So number 34 for me is one that we've already talked about today, actually. And that song is A Love Story by the band Beardfish from the album The Same Day. We looked it up, and it is The Same Day. I don't have that much more to add about it, but it's just a really, really good song. It's it's very emotional. It really like is, like Brendan said, like one of the best songs ever about just like romantic relationship troubles, and just like how that feels, from both of their perspectives. Because in the story, like the female, like basically like has to end it with the guy, and she's like done with him, but like the guy is like still not at all done with her. So it's sort of just like that thing where it's like she feels bad or whatever, because she's like breaking his heart or whatever, and he feels bad because his heart is broken, and just like how they both deal with that basically. And they actually have another song later in their discography where they revisit that story, and it's also really good, but I won't talk about that now. But anyways, really good song, and the last like 2 minutes of it are just so emotional. Where it starts, where it has that little like riff where it's like that thing, and then it kind of like then the last bit where he's like again like pleading with her to like take him back and everything, but it's like totally hopeless, and like everyone knows that. It's just really rough, but also just like amazing of a song. Okay, and my number 33 is.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And my number 33 is The Lotus Eater by the band Opeth, from Watershed. And, this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but Opeth is actually, they're my favorite band, probably. And they have the most songs on this list, but we've actually only done one so far from them. So there's going to be really heavily featured in the next, 20 or so. But anyways, so The Lotus Eater is definitely my favorite song from Watershed, which was an album that was kind of divisive for them because it was their last harsh vocal album, and a lot of people felt like so Opeth is a band that started off as a progressive metal band, progressive death metal band, and they had a lot of they mixed harsh vocals and clean vocals a lot, and later on in their discography, now basically they only do clean vocals and it's more like progressive rock, and Watershed was their last progressive death metal album, but it already showed signs of having less death metal influence. A lot of people didn't like that album and thought it was kind of disjointed. And Michael Ockerfeld has gone on record, I think, to say that his heart wasn't as in it for that album as it was for some of the previous albums because his own tastes were changing so much. And he thought they'd said all they needed to say in the progressive death metal genre for a while anyways. So, and so it is it's not one of my favorite Opeth albums, but I do think it gets a little overlooked. I do really like it, and I like that transition between the more rocky side and the more metal side. And also they brought in Frederick Åkesson, who's their current guitar player, and he's a really good guitar player. Not that Peter Lindgren, who was their previous guitar player before, and also Michael who's their lead singer, also plays guitar. But Frederick Åkesson is a shred guy. He's nuts. He's really, really talented. And I feel that element was always you don't always need that, but I feel that element was always kind of just some people wanted that. And I like hearing that in Opeth's music. So it was cool to hear that in Opeth progressive death metal with a shred guitarist guy. Anyways, the song itself, The Lotus Eater, is very, very progressive and awesome. It starts off with a crazy humming thing before going into this balls to the wall riff and vocal thing that goes on and on. But halfway through it kind of gets really, really quiet all of a sudden and does this really jazzy thing that is really unexpected. And this really cool flute thing where it basically kind of the flute kind of builds and stack. Weird stuff, but really cool. And I love the song overall, and it's very dynamic and different. I actually first heard this song live when we saw them in 2015, I think. Actually, it was at the end of 2014. Mm-hmm. And I really liked it then. And I went back and listened to it later, and I was like, that's a really good song.
My number 34 is a song that Eric talked about on the last episode.
Nice.
And that is the song Comfort Zone by Beardfish.
Oh, yeah.
He touched on a lot of things that I wanted to say about it. Again, it's a really cool, the album as a whole is a cool concept about getting out of comfort zones. And this song does a really good job of it, of being stuck in a place you don't want to be. And again, me and you both feel like that very often.
Yeah.
Where we live. So it just means a lot to me. And it just has really, really good lyrics. The instrumentation is amazing. The bass, I really love the guitar, there's this guitar line that like opens up, and then the full band comes in. The bass line that's playing like before the vocals come in is like so good. It's so tasty, and there's really good keyboard and piano work on the song as well. And McCard's lyrics and vocals are just like spot on, like always. And there's this really good lyric, like where it's like, I hate everything and everyone except for the chosen few.
Yeah.
Whenever that like line hits, that's like my favorite lyric in the entire song.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I can relate to it a lot.
Yeah, he kind of like yells that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and it's really emotional, and it's a really good line, I think. And yeah, the song as a whole is just like excellent. I'm not going to go too much into it because Eric went into it, but it's just a really good track. My next song is another Between the Buried and Me song. Nice. And they're my favorite band, so there's going to be a decent amount of them on here as well. And the song is from The Great Misdirect, and the song is Swim to the Moon.
I love that song.
And it's a 17-minute song. It's the closing track on the album. It's the longest song they've ever written. And the best way to describe it is just like organized chaos.
Yeah.
It's really long, and there's a lot of really long like instrumental sections. And this song is actually like, I feel like most Between the Buried and Me fans like it, but there is like a group, a loud minority that like doesn't like it because they think it's like really disjointed or whatever.
Yeah.
I disagree with it. I think it like flows perfectly, even if it is like chaos and insane. I think it works really well. It opens with this like cool instrumentation, really crazy instrumentation before Tommy, and there's a guest vocalist in the beginning. I forget his name, but they're kind of going back and forth with each other with some more. Tommy's using some growls, and this guy's using some more like standard, like almost like mixed like clean harsh vocals. They're kind of going back and forth at each other, and it builds this like really cool chorus at I think it's like the 5-minute mark. That's really melodic. It's melodic, like sung clean vocally, but then there's like some screams in the background at the end of each line, which is really interesting. Before going into this like really long instrumental section, before like coming back to that chorus and like completely clean, and then from like the 9-minute mark to like the 15-minute mark of the song, it's just like a really long like jam session, and there's some really insane drum work going on from Blake, and there's some really cool bass stuff. Obviously everyone's just like going insane, and there's some really cool like dueling like noodly riffs and solos back and forth between Dusty and Paul, and they do that like 5 or 6 times. It's just like really long, but it's like so well written, before like finally all the chaos like comes to like a fold, and this is like this acoustic guitar that quiets the song down like a lot, and Tommy like sings like the chorus one more time before like bursting into the final chorus. And it's really emotional at the end because the final, like the Swim to the Moon part is usually sung clean throughout the whole song, and then the final time he sings it, he just like screams it in his like typical harsh vocals. And it's this really big song that's just a great journey, and I love it so much. It's one of my favorite Between the Buried and Me songs, and one of my favorite songs ever.
Nice. I listened to The Great Misdirect yesterday.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a really tasty album. All right. So my number 32 is a song by a band that me and Brandon both find near and dear to our hearts, and it's from an album that Brandon has already talked about today. And I think it's interesting because it's another example of an album where me and Brandon like both love the album a whole lot, but have like totally different picks as our like favorites on the album. And the song is "At the End of the Earth" by the band The Deer Hunter on the album Act 4 Rebirth and Reprise. I've been kind of like trying to think about like why our like favorites are so different throughout the Deer Hunter's discography, and I think part of it is just like for me, I guess I personally I love like everything the Deer Hunter's ever done, but I think that the more like melancholy sad songs like get to me slightly more as a standalone thing. Like as a whole, it's all perfect, but for me, like as a standalone package, just his like really sad melancholy songs like hit me in the feels like nothing else ever does. And so this song is an example of that. It's a very melancholy, like sad song, and just very emotional with lots of like a wailing chorus and everything, and it's just really good. So I love that song a lot.
That's probably my third favorite song on the album.
Oh, it is? Okay, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, at least I love that song a whole lot. My next one is one that you might find surprising, but on the other hand, maybe not, which is kind of, I guess you could say that about all of them. But it is the song A Pacific Sonata by Motorpsycho off the album The Tower. Motorpsycho is a really good band that I discovered like in 2017, because the album The Tower, which the song is from, had amazing album art, and I thought it looked really cool, and so I checked them out, and they have a pretty extensive back catalog that I still haven't worked my way all the way through, and apparently they're pretty well liked in Sweden and Norway, where they're from. I think they're from Norway.
Yeah.
But like over here, even in the prog world, they're like not well known at all, I don't think. So I listened to that album and loved it a lot. So I think that that song, like the song A Pacific Sonata, is really interesting because it starts off with like, you know, some kind of like soothing vocals. It's a very soothing song overall and very relaxing, which is kind of interesting because sometimes like Motorpsycho can be quite not soothing. But anyway, so this song is very soothing, very like lullaby-y vocals in the beginning, and then like sort of like I think around like the halfway mark in the song, like it just starts off with this really long like jam thing, and then the jam thing like changes a couple times, but it's just so good. I don't know why. For some reason, there's two like major jam parts, but there's like a couple of minor things they throw in there. But those that really just like is like perfect, and it just like puts me in such a mood to like explore and like go places. Partly because I listened to it on a really cool like trip that I did across the country for the first time. So it's sort of like it always reminds me of that and like brings me back to like where I was when I was listening to that song and the album as a whole, which is just fantastic. Yeah.
All right. My 32 is yet again a band I've mentioned already, and Eric has mentioned already in this segment a few times. It's the Deer Hunter yet again. This is a segment where they're getting featured a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a song off Act 5, and it's called The March. This might be the shortest song on my list, actually, I think.
Interesting.
Just over 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Pretty short song for our standards. But it's this song that like it works really well within the concept of the album. It's the 13th track on Act 5, which is like very near the end of the story. And it's just like, for me, it's like, it just is the climax of like the entire acts for me. And the first time I heard it, I was like in love with it, and I haven't like not been in love with it since. It's like really, really good. It's super emotional, and it has my favorite reprise in the entire discography, where it reprises The Old Haunt lyrically. It also reprises The Smiling Swine musically and lyrically a couple times throughout it. But it's really cool. It starts off with this really like, I don't know, this really like, scary like piano line.
That reprises, it's really sinister.
Yeah, it reprises the song The Smiling Swine from Act 2. It's reprising that, and then The Smiling Swine, it's more like upbeat or whatever. And it's just hearing it like in this like tone is very dark and sinister, but it's really cool. And Casey comes in kind of like with some like cool vocals that are like more like him shouting instead of like singing normally or whatever. And it's really good. And before coming into this really like part lyrically that's really like mellow. And then the chorus is just like so good. I love it so much. And there's this really cool like orchestration stuff going on with the strings between like verses or whatever. That's really, really well done. And then it builds to like this chorus for the second time before coming in with some really like sweeping orchestration from the strings before coming to that reprise that I love so much, the Far Too Many Ways to Die reprise. And it's just so well done, and it like transitions beautifully into the next song as well with this like slower like orchestral like fade out. But it's really, really good, and it's again best listened to within the context of the acts. I think getting to it like as a journey, like the first time is really rewarding, or any time you listen to it. But it's a song I can listen to standalone as well. But I definitely prefer listening to it and listening to Act 5 as a whole, listening to all 5 of them together. But it's just really, really emotional to this like story that I've been following for like, I don't know, 4 years now. And it's just like hits me in the feels like every time, and it's an amazing song. And my 31, my last one for this segment, is Between the Buried and Me again. Nice. A lot of Deer Hunter and BT Bam for me this week. And the song is Fossil Genera, A Feed from Cloud Mountain, which is my favorite song off The Great Misdirect. It's a 12-minute song. It's really good. It's really diverse musically. It opens with like this really circusy like piano line before like playing like a similar riff on the guitars like that. But
it was like really heavy.
Yeah, it's really heavy. So it's really weird because the piano line is really like fun and circusy, and then the riff like is playing like the same melody but like a really heavy version of that. So it's really cool contrast. And then it like slows down into these like really weird vocals and really like kind of quirky lyrics. And Tommy like is using this like weird voice to like convey these lyrics. And he kind of does this thing where he like whispers it almost, and it's really creepy. And there's this cool part like in between some of the lyrics where like I don't know who does it on the album. I don't think they do it live, but on the album someone does this cool like this little whistle thing or whatever. That's really interesting. It comes into this like almost like this chorus for this part or whatever, where it's more like the heavy riff is back and Tommy's singing this chorus before like just really like drastically turning into this like really heavy like breakdown or whatever with this like harsh vocal section that goes on for like a while. Like it's really 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 heavy for like 5 minutes. It's just like super super heavy, and there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on instrumentally, lyrically and vocally, before like coming into this like really melodic like acoustic guitar section with the solo from Paul Wagner that's really really melodic and like slowed down and not like super fast or anything like they do a lot of the time. And then there's really cool lyrics, like uplifting lyrics, before going to this like part at the end where there's like some strings accompanying like the rest of the band, and Tommy just keeps saying we must move on or whatever, like over and over again. It's really emotional with the strings and the whole band playing as well. It's just a really great song overall, and it's one of my favorite BTBF songs again.
All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about the surprises for the week, like we did in our last episode.
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised by anything this week. I kind of thought all the songs except one would be on the list. And the song I was surprised about, I think the most, was actually the Opeth song.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know how much you liked that song. I didn't know there would be a song featured from that album. That's actually, I didn't even know that was your favorite song on the album, because that's actually my favorite song on the album too.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people, it's not a lot of people's favorite song.
Yeah, I thought your favorite song was Heir Apparent, actually.
Yeah, that one's also really good.
But yeah, that's my favorite song as well, and I didn't think it would make the list, or if it did make the list, I didn't think it'd be that high. So that was my surprise this week. Everything else I thought would be on there.
Cool. I thought that, so for mine, I thought that A Love Story, I thought that would be like maybe on the list, but maybe not. But if it was, it would be like 49 or 50 or something like that. So I was surprised about that one a little bit. I was a little bit surprised that Swim to the Moon was behind Fossil Genera, but I wasn't surprised that both of those made the list at all. I think that other than that, that was pretty much it. I also thought I was also a little bit surprised that Sermon in the Silt wasn't your favorite song in Act 4 anymore. And I also thought Radio 2 might be a little higher, I guess. But other than that, specifically which songs were on there, I don't think any of them really surprised me this week, actually. Yeah.
All right. So song recs for this week. This can be a little quicker than normal. My song is by the Flower Kings. It's called Stardust We Are, off the album Stardust We Are. It's the closing track on the album. It's a double album. It's a 25-minute epic song. It's definitely the best song on the album, and actually might be my favorite Flower King song overall. But really cool stuff by the symphonic prog band. A lot of cool guitar work, a lot of cool keyboard stuff. It's just a really good song that flows really well, and it builds perfectly, and there's a really emotional guitar solos filtered throughout, especially at the end of the song. But overall, just a really tasty track that you should check out.
All right, and my song rec is the song Intrepid Explorer from the band Motorpsycho. That's also from The Tower. It's my second favorite song on that album, by somewhat close to a margin, even though it didn't make my top 50 list. But all those songs are kind of packed in there anyway. So the song's really good. It's like a 10-minute sort of song, but it feels really epic, and it's very different from a Pacific Sonata. It's still very ambient and stuff, but it's even more explory, and lots of experimental winding kind of melodies that are really interesting and different. So I like that song a lot. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the week.
That's pretty much it for this week, and we will see you next time on ProgPod. Thank you all for listening.